So next up is the DutchX Subgraph, and it's Grant. He's already kind of known to the Gnosis ecosystem because he picked up a few bounties we had, and now he wants to build a supplementary data management solution for the DutchX protocol using the graph. So the floor is yours, and you can pitch the project.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. All right, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so project is the DutchX Subgraph. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Grant Worker. I've been doing computer science stuff for about 6 years. Done undergraduate research, system administration, enterprise software development, smart contract development, F2 dev, then pretty active on Gitcoin. And as stated, I've done some stuff with Gnosis in the past. So the project that I'm proposing is just integration with the graph platform. And the graph is just a decentralized protocol for managing data from Ethereum. It's decoupled from the blockchain, and it allows for storage off of it. So who else uses it? Here's a bunch of other projects that currently use it. It's just a general purpose solution, pretty standard. And yeah, it just makes accessing data from dApps much easier. So why is it useful? So say you have a bunch of information on the DutchX that you want to get. Going directly to the smart contracts is pretty unpleasant. Like reading data from member variables isn't really a great way for querying things. So say you want to get information like retrieve all cleared auctions between WETH and RDN. That's not very easy, especially if you want to get other relevant information like the sell price, stuff like that. So what the graph does is it just listens to the Ethereum network for events being emitted. And then when those events get emitted, it just either takes information from the event or goes back to the state and then pulls more information and then coalesces it into models. So it's pretty flexible there with the models. You can basically represent things however you want. And then when it comes time for somebody to retrieve it, they can just go to a graph node and they can make some pretty intuitive queries. And I'll show an example later. So yeah, so why is a special data management solution useful? Some of the key benefits are, for one, iterability. So being able to decouple the models that you want to use to store historic information separately from what you have in the smart contract for execution. That's useful because you can make changes to the models in the subgraph outside of the smart contract. So say you want to like make other information accessible to applications making like UIs or something. You don't have to make changes in smart contracts in most cases. You can just store data in the graph anytime an entity or anytime an event is emitted. So I mean, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. Cost efficiency for things like sell prices at the end of an auction. You don't really, I mean, I'm not an expert on the DutchX contracts, but I'm sure there's a lot of information that's stored in them that might be able to be removed that could still be useful down the road. So say you want to have like a list of all the, like say you have a UI and somebody wants to see like all the deposits and withdrawals they've made. You can just get that from the subgraph and it doesn't need to be stored inside of the DutchX contracts. So if something like state rent is introduced down the road, it would really allow you to lean out the smart contracts themselves and just kind of offload historic data management to the subgraph. As far as developer appeal goes, this is really just something that should make development easier for people. The graph uses GraphQL, and that's where the name comes from. GraphQL, it's a query language developed by Facebook, open source. It has a lot of support in the industry, and as far as query languages are concerned, I think a lot of people would prefer to use that. So making that accessible to developers trying to build things on top of the DutchX would be pretty great. Yeah, so I'll demonstrate the prototype right now. This is from Hackathon. Made this during ETH Denver a few months ago. Don't remember the exact date, but yeah, it won two bounties in the competition. Best new subgraph. There were about like 10 or 15 applicants for that one, and then best DutchX integration. There was nobody else competing with me there, so got that one by default. It's still great. Yeah, so I will just show you. So I had mentioned that, Corey, that would be nice beforehand. If you wanted to get all of the cleared auctions between Weth and Raiden. So here's what that query would look like. So you have a where clause inside of the query where you can say, okay, I want to get all of the cleared auctions, and I want the sell token is Raiden and the buy token is Weth. So it just filters all of the entities based on this. Right now there's 2,000 entities in this subgraph, and this is just for auctions. And yeah, so it'll filter based on that, and then it'll sort on start time and ordered and descending. So it'll be the most recent one that's come up top, and then it'll just get the price numerator and denominator. So you run that, it's pretty quick. They take care of all the caching and stuff, so it's really fast. It's built on top of IPFS. And yeah, so these are all of the auctions that have completed between Raiden and Weth. So you can just add something like this in here, and it'll just add in start time. There's two or three, maybe 4 attributes in addition to that. So you can just add those in there. You can filter on them and sort by them, and a whole lot of other stuff that's enabled by GraphQL. So yeah, there's that. Cost and time, I'm thinking, oops, go back. I'm thinking 2 months, and asking for a little over 15,000. Yeah, so basically it. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. We are also internally looking into the graph. So we have been implementing Subgraph for the new prediction market framework. And we're actually also internally looking into implementing the graph for the Dutch exchange. I was wondering, like, based on what you did already at the East Denver Hackathon, like, what would you like to add? And why do you think it will take 2 months to do it?
Yeah, so you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Didn't click it off or anything. Okay. Yeah, so I have in the proposal, I put together this list. Auctions is what I implemented during the hackathon, but you could have all these other models in here. So balances, deposits, withdrawals, sell orders, buy orders, sell funds claim, buyer funds claims, fees, and markets. I'm sure there's a lot of other things too. This is just kind of what I put together based on investing like a few days looking into the contracts a little bit more. But yeah, I bet there's a lot more stuff.
Okay, and why do you think it will take 2 months? Or like,
oh yeah, yeah. So it took me about I think it was a full day for the hackathon to just do the auctions. That doesn't include any testing, doesn't really include any documentation. Inside of this, I'm including pretty thorough testing and documentation around everything that's added. And yeah, it's a little bit on the safe side, 2 months, but yeah, at least when I was.
Have you thought about queries? Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's just it's just kind of safe. You know, I read somewhere like if you're putting together a funding request, you should always just multiply what you think it'll take you by 2, because usually things take a little bit longer. And in my experience with software engineering, things always do take a little bit longer.
At least by 2, yeah. Have you thought about specific like queries you would like to answer? What kind of queries do you think would be interesting? I think this also influences obviously how you would like to define the I think the graph schema.
Like other queries that you know, just like yeah, I guess I don't quite understand the question.
So basically, what kind of, like, let's say you would like to use it for an analytical application? Have you thought about like ways how you would like to define how the data structures look like in the graph to get this data? Do you have some specific queries in mind do you think would be interesting that should be taken into account when you want to design this data structures for the graph?
I guess I haven't really done that specifically. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would probably be a pretty good way of thinking about it, like as far as how people would use this and what kind of queries would they be trying to make and what kind of information would they like to see modeled. That would probably be a useful way of thinking about it. But yeah, aside from just like looking at the contracts and seeing, okay, how could we, like how could this be modeled? I haven't really thought much in that sense. You know, like I could see somebody wanting to build a like UI for a bunch of different decentralized exchanges, and they could want to see like, you know, what was the trading volume for GNO on Friday? Like, I could totally see that being a useful query.
One question I have, do you know how easy it is to like make queries across dApps? So let's say for Uniswap there would be a well, similar graph schema, and you in the end want to do is query like compare the prices in some form or stuff like that. Do you know? Do you know kind of how? Well, yeah, whether it's possible to do queries across dApps.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, if somebody's running a graph node, they could just like add as many subgraphs as they want, or access any subgraphs they want through the through their hosted service. So yeah, they could look at the interface for Uniswap and look at the interface for DutchX and just kind of see like where those two things come together, and then they could yeah, build some applications on top of it that take information from both and put them together in such a way that it's useful.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next is Protofire, but I have a few more minutes until you can join. There's still this person in the group.
Yeah,
Should we? I can.
I think we could eject them.
Don't take it personally.
They have the link so they could rejoin them.
We can also watch it. And I will bump us up to 16.
So I think Manu already joined. So next up would be Protofire, and they already got funding in the first round to build the video interface for the DutchX FairDex. And within this round, they want to improve the user onboarding and awareness of the platform. Manu, can you hear us?
Hi, Marine. Hi, everybody.
So if you want, you can go ahead and start presenting your proposal for the next round.
Great to have you here.
Yes.
There you go.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Well, we just said great to have you here.
Okay. Yes, likewise. First of all, thank you very much for giving us this time. And I will share my presentation if I find... Oh, this is all Hangout. So... Please let me know if you see.
Yes, yes.
Okay, awesome. So as Marian said, we got one of the first GECO grants last year, and we deliver an application that is called fairdex.net. Basically, well, I think that most of you have used it. Even showcasing on live streaming with the campaigns, $1 million divided in 100,000 DAI campaigns. The achievements that we have got are that we finally built the first fully functional bidder UI, which is in both Drinkable and also in mainnet, and well, interact with the DutchX protocol. Also, this bidder UI, it has many advanced features related to wallets. So it's not only bidding, but also walking through extended features that are not regular wallets have. Besides this, some other contributions to, so those like the touch points or contributions to the Gnosis ecosystem, is that we have fully integrated it with Gnosis Safe. The Gnosis Safe, well, the Gnosis team also created a step-by-step guide on how to use, how to bid on a running auction using Gnosis Safe. We added to the application, so thank you very much. It's very nice. We, from the, us being one of the grantees, we created many posts, tweets. We even made a professional video and gave one talk at the conference last December. That was very good because we were able to not only showcase Fairdex, but in order to showcase Fairdex, we need to explain the DutchX and also a slowed-up trade. And given that we are talking about all this and the roadmap and the future, we also are able to communicate what the DX DAO is. So it's a great contribution to the ecosystem. As an outcome from this application, it was heavily used. As for now, is communicating on every single campaign for the 100,000 WETH DAI auctions. We are very happy that we believe, well, that it brought a lot of user adoption, given that it provides real-time numbers. It's easier to understand a mechanism which is not straightforward. We also got a lot of activity in Telegram groups. We contributed there. We are always online or try to be online, answer any questions. And luckily, we got really good feedback, even though from the beginning that we had some issues with the applications and on how we decided to show the numbers was quite confusing. And thanks to this great feedback, we were able to overcome many issues. As for today, we are open sourcing Fairdex. This was part of the initial proposal, but well, things needs to be stable, everything working. So right now the application is fully open source. It has also many components and examples that are very useful for other developers to take a look at and to directly reuse them. And it's under the Protofire organization. And we are proposing in this for this GECO round to do a next generation Fairdex with the goal of onboarding the second big wave of end users, not advanced end users, but users that they don't have experience with DutchX, or not very traders, or very low-level experience people. And in order to do that, we have to focus a lot on user experience. We plan to increase adoption by simplifying many UX, UI steps, flows, and try to remove as many frictions as possible that we find today. So the application today is completely functional, but as new users come, we have more feedback and it can be made much easier. Why we consider that this is important? Because, well, DutchX and the Dutch auctions they are complex, and we require that all the participants they fully understand the protocol in order to make educated decisions, and in this case, particularly at the right time. And it's not only this, but also to get educated for arbitrage as well, or some other use cases. That the platform can be used not only for bidding, but for education purposes as well. Another important thing is that it is great, the timing, to capitalize the momentum that it was generated by the launch, and how the DutchX is evolving, and how the DX DAO is coming. So we consider that it's a great timing to implement a better UX. The roadmap consists on a few features and improvements, simplification in the UI, and currently we have some steps that needs to be performed in different actions. So we would love to bundle them in less transactions and less steps, and provide better context to the users on why they are doing what they're doing. Also provide help and tutorials, not like not very good tutorials and video that I have shared in Twitter. Another thing is real-time charts. We all love charts beside numbers. So we consider that will be very, very valuable. The timeline is only 1.5 months. And I say only is because, well, we built Fairdex and we have a very deep know-how on the protocols and on all the tools that were used in this project, and also in other projects such as Slow.Trade and DX services, the CLI. So it won't take us too much time. The team, we're planning to use this to deploy the same team as the team that deliver Fairdex. Here is our proposal that we have created the pull request with all the details or the breakdown on the features, the time. You know that we are very thorough on the estimates and the roadmap and milestones. Some other projects that we contribute to, that this bring value because it's great when we have contact with other ecosystems and how we might be able to contribute by connecting existing projects that with Gnosis. For instance, the previous example, which was the graph, we are also working on the graph for Maker, and it's very nice, this project, and it would be much nicer when they bring their network to be decentralized. So that's awesome. And I think that this was duplicated. And here's the link to this presentation. Feel free to download it. And now we are open to questions.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry, guys. I am a bit sick.
Question. So, first of all, congratulations for the first release of Vertex. I think it's a overall good product. If I understand, this is second GECO would be about user functionality, focused on a new like end user. So these new ideas for the second version, are they the result of any study or any test with hands in hands with users, or is just the feedback you've received?
We didn't perform formal user interviews or user experiments. This is coming from direct feedback to a couple of channels and to direct messages, and also for using it a lot. And yes, we consider that our users deserve a better experience. Did I answer your question, Angel?
Yes. I have another one, because I saw in the notes that one of these new features that you would plan to incorporate is the submission of like a buy order ahead of time. Like when the price drops below a certain point, you submit it. Is this idea, so how would you plan to do this? Like, so it's like on-chain, it's a meta transaction, it's something that runs on the browser?
Let me see. I don't have explicit details here. Leo, do you have the answer for that?
I think that, hello everybody, I think that was on the initial proposal that we made, but
yes,
for the one that we prepared for this round of the GECO, we removed that feature.
All right.
Yes, you drop off for a second. So what Leo was saying is that this is a different scope that we're proposing now. When we made the first proposal, it was quite big, but we cut it in two parts. One is an MVP, and the second was many additional features. Some features will take more centralized, freemium, I would say, features, such as transaction scheduling, notifications, automatic auctions, actions such as auto claim, and many things. But this scope is not related to that scope. This is focused on user experience.
Thank you.
You have in the deliverables. You mentioned the charts. So there you would be planning to use the graph, right? Or
yes.
To get the historical data, yeah. Okay. No, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
we know the project. We like the project. So.
How does the Dutch auction work?
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And remember, if it drops, the price goes up, down. I still can't remember. I
No,
think
those are
we,
details. It doesn't matter.
Something
I think
happens to the price.
yes, I think that we need a new UX improvement, and it will be all clear.
I heard some people use it for an ICO. Terrible idea.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Pass time if you have any other question.
I think 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yeah, so the next projects are about prediction markets, and the next one should be the Alice team, who plans to integrate prediction markets to create transparent social impact platform on Ethereum.
Social impact prediction markets.
So this is 50K for 8 months.
Hang on, what are they called?
It's Alice, it's a social impact prediction market.
Okay, social. Is it Alice as in an island or?
No, Alice as in Alice and Bob.
Ah, Alice, okay.
Ellen is here.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We haven't had anyone who's remote introduce themselves yet, have we?
Right, Anshu was already like out when.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, Andron.
Still 15 people watching. 16 now.
One of those is MI.
One of those.
Right, Anshu was already like out when.
Hey, y'all.
So there's something weird with your mic. Can hardly hear you.
One of those is MI.
Right, Anshu already like out when.
Abducted by aliens.
So they should be in already, right?
They should be already here. It started 2 minutes ago, so it's
2 minutes.
2 minutes ago.
Ooh.
And at least one of them confirmed he's joined.
So they should be in already, right?
They should be already here. It started 2 minutes ago. So
2 minutes.
2 minutes ago. And you can
Are you watching the YouTube stream? Like, there's a weird delay.
I think.
I think she has enough.
I think Jakob from the Alice team joined.
Hi there. Hi everyone.
Hi.
So we nice to have you here. We're a little bit behind, so if you want, you can already go ahead and start with your presentation and introduce the project you're working on.
Sure. I think there was a difference between the link in the email and the link on the scheduler, so we tried both. Sorry, we're a bit late. So I'm Raphael, and I'm with my colleague and co-founder Kuba. So we work on a project called Alice, which is a social impact network that's built on Ethereum. We've been working on it for about 3 years now. I'm going to share my screen so we have a little presentation for you if I can do that. Let's see. Wow, I've never done a live stream before. How do I share my screen?
So on the left-hand side, there's a little green rectangle with a white arrow.
Ah, yeah. All right. I have to hover on it. There we go. The entire screen. Share. Oh, hey. Can you see that?
Yes. Perfect.
All right, awesome. So our company mission is to help identify and scale provably effective social projects. Let me see that. Oh, technology, beautiful. Sometimes I wonder if Google can't get it right. Yeah, so we're looking to identify the best social and environmental solutions out there using a mix of conditional payments, what we call philanthropy by results, and blockchain technology. So the core of what we're doing is conditional donations. That's the product that we have live that we've been running for the last couple of years. This is one of the pilots on our platform right now. It's a donations app to help to help rescue animals that have been wild animals that have been captured and abused in Russia. We ran one to help homeless people in London find a home, and we have another one that's helping send prosthetic limbs to people in Nepal who have lost their limbs and need them in remote areas. And we have about 10 that are going to come online this year that are going to be much bigger scale. So we finished kind of our beta round now, more or less. But it's not just a donations app. It's actually a pretty sophisticated ecosystem of different actors that are there to generate impact data, validated impact data, so that it helps in a transparent way, helping people identify really provably effective projects. The way that it works, as I said, is that there are conditional donations that are effectively made by people and held in escrow. Because charities and social organizations need money up front to run a project before they get paid, because by definition, they only get paid after they achieve their goals, then they get upfront funding, working capital, seed capital, risk capital from impact investors. And in order to release donations, they need to submit proof of impact to a validator who validates the goals on Alice. That triggers a series of events. Notably, it pays money to the charity for having achieved its goals. Part of the money goes to repay the investors who have made the impact investment. And then there's also an impact report that's made to the donors. So that's how our system works right now. The reason why we're interested in using Gnosis, and particularly the conditional tokens, is because we've basically rolled our own conditional tokens. If I just go back here 1 second, the impact investors, when they make that initial funding decision, in our system, they already receive a token that gives them the right to be reimbursed. And then in time, what we wanted to do is make those tradable, so whoever owns that token owns a right to the collateral which is held on the platform and the smart contracts, and the collateral is essentially donations. So we've coded that as an ERC20 token, but the fact that that Gnosis is working on something much more complete, much more flexible, is something that's really interesting to us in terms of transparency, in terms of liquidity, and in terms of efficiency. Just really to look at the benefits as we see them of using your conditional tokens, is that it's a great way to make our system more flexible. And what we want to do is actually encode every step of what produces impact. So if you run a project that's helping someone find employment, or a cohort of people find employment, then you don't just look at whether they find a job at the end, but you can also encode or map out all of the milestones that lead to that. So how many people have been referred into the program, how many people start the program, graduate from it, find a job, and then stay in their job. We think that it would be also, because we're abstracting out the ability to create a number of nested conditions in these tokens, it could offer more flexibility to investors as well to hedge against external events. So they can make their initial investment in a project, but then if they fear, for example, if it's a Brexit or a project in the UK and they think it's going to be affected by Brexit, maybe they can split that and sell some of the risk on to another investor. And obviously with Gnosis and sort of creating this global pool of liquidity will just make it much easier for people to be able to trade their tokens. So that's one of the main reasons why we're interested. Our development plan, which is also in the proposal, is first of all to refactor our existing systems and then create an interface to be able to split and merge tokens and conditions specifically for Alice. Obviously, everything will be open source and hopefully it'll be helpful for others. And we're undergoing right now a whole big compliance review with Clifford Chance, a big law firm, to make all of this legally compliant. So we're also going to put in controllers to define what can be split and what can't. Secondly, and finally, is integrating with Gnosis is going to help us create more signaling parameters using the prediction markets. And we see that as really powerful in terms of, first of all, allowing people to really keep track of what's going on in every project, because there's an incentive for people to really look at that, particularly because so let's say you have a homelessness project that's helping house people. Prediction markets can help you predict whether it's going to work or it's going to fail. And that is going to be a great signaling mechanism for people to tell people, what they should invest in. It's also going to help with making sure that the data that's provided by validators is accurate. And what we think it's going to do is it could potentially, so there's a little bit of market research to be done around that, but we think it could potentially give a voice to the beneficiaries, so the people who benefit from these social services, give them a voice directly on whether they think it's going to work or not, and whether they think the services are adapted to their needs or not, because often you have social services that are just imposed on people and they never really have a say. So the development plan for that is to first create the prediction market creator that's integrated with Alice, a market monitoring interface, and then signaling tools, particularly for beneficiaries. So we're already creative. Reason I have a cold, I'm sorry. I've just come back from Odyssey, the hackathon, where we've been iterating on Alice to provide wallets to tenants of social housing so they can receive part of the outcome payments if they can take control of their lives. And because this is all Web3, we can use that same kind of basic wallet to provide interfaces for them to also play around with prediction markets. And all of that is going to be done over about 8 months, with phase 1 being the integration with conditional tokens, and phase 2 the creation of prediction markets. And that's pretty much it. I don't know how I did on time, but hopefully I've caught up a little bit and that was clear.
You're quite good on time.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, I definitely love it, and I, of course, we are coming from the prediction market world. I think I totally see the reasoning behind it. I would also personally much more prefer to donate something like conditionally, like make sure that. So I totally see it, and I get it. I'm just wondering how, or what do you think is a good first channel? Or I mean, I think it's not super easy to convince people that there is a better way. So have you experienced with the charity sector, or have you connections to people? Do you know of people who would say, I'm willing to donate some money, but only with this conditional framework and stuff like that?
Yeah. So so there are two things, right? Who's willing to make donations, conditional donations, and then who's willing to make the actual investment in those donations. So on the first, or investments that are collateralized by the donations, right? Because they work in tandem. So on the first, we've been running pilots on this for the past 2 years, as I said, and we're about to launch a few really interesting projects. One of them is with Cancer Research UK, which is one of the biggest charities in the UK. They bring in about $600 million worth of donations, so £500 million of donations every year. they have a huge problem around restricted funding, where people just give to specific causes. So we're going to help them manage that, and we're discussing a bunch of deals with really big charities that are going to roll this out to their donors. So it worked quite well with the pilots. These were really small, low-level pilots, and we definitely need to do a lot of testing about how we present the message to people. And we have a bunch of cohort tests in there, but overall it seems to be working just as well, if not better, than normal appeals. And what's really captured people's imaginations about Alice is that, you know, there is at the moment a trend towards the decline in trust in the charity sector. It's just a fact of life. People are way more cynical about what charities achieve, and this at least gives them a guarantee that they'll be able to see the impact that their money makes. And we believe that that's going to be super powerful, and we have partners to back us up on this. Now, on the investment side, like, who would be on the other side, who would provide the investment to provide the seed capital to the charities to run these projects? So the whole platform is really heavily inspired by something called social impact bonds, which traditionally have been led by the government. So in the UK, the US, France, Holland, there are a bunch of markets that have been pioneering these, which work in the same way. So the government says, we'll pay for this service, but we'll only pay if the outcomes are achieved, and impact investors provide that. So the first pilot that we did, helping homeless people in London, that was actually a spin-off of a social impact bond. The validator in that case was the Greater London Authority, and the delivery organization was a charity called St. Mungo's. So there are a bunch of institutional impact investors that we've been talking to on an ongoing basis, whose model is to have a double bottom line. Impact investors are people who want a financial return, and they want a measurable social return. So for them, Alice is a way to actually expand that market. And at the same time, because social impact bonds, the way that they're set up is very traditional. It's like heavy contracts, renegotiations, and all of that. The work that we're doing with Clifford Chance is to massively reduce the transaction cost. So you can automatically deploy compliant social impact bonds using smart contracts that are linked to wet contracts that spit out the clauses automatically and reduce the cost, but also democratize who can invest. So bringing it to smaller investors as well. So overall, there are a lot of assumptions in our model, and we're still very early stage, but we've done initial tests that are really promising, and we have the partners to push this out.
I think we are almost over time. Or we are over time.
Oh, we're over time. Yeah. Well,
one short question. So you mentioned web contracts. So with prediction markets, it's not always super easy to define, to really define the payout criteria. So I mean, well, a soccer match is pretty easy. Then you can say, well, but with stuff with social impact, a good measurable goal, like how much have you thought about that? Or
yeah. So I'll give you, again, the easiest example to use is the very first pilot that we did. So for example, St. Mungo's, they had a bunch of different outcomes. One of them was helping a homeless person find a home, and they'd get paid £600 every time that happened. The validator was the Greater London Authority, the housing team in the local government, and them saying, yes, this has happened, is what triggered the payment. And some of the outcomes that we're looking now at the moment, we're working on a project, for example, that's refurbishing a homelessness center. Another one is supportive housing for people in social housing to get into training, job training. And so all of that is verified by a service provider. In time, we want to do a validator market. But what we think the prediction market in particular is going to help us do is actually organically create a rate card around how much it costs to deliver social impact. So how much does it cost to help kids without parents to find a foster home, for example? How much does it cost to reforest the forests in specific areas in the world? And that's the whole point, is to generate all of this data, almost have a competitive market for service providers, charities, social organizations to deliver it at certain prices. And then you can see their track record, right? And even if you're even just slightly rational as a donor, you're more likely to give to the ones that have the highest track record, so have the highest hit rate of actually solving the problems for the lowest price. And that's what we want to get to, which is a huge challenge in our sector, obviously.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, that's super interesting.
All right. Thank you very much. Great talking to you guys. That was quick, but short and sweet. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
So next up is prediction market ScaleCases, and I think Mohammed, you're already in the call. So just go ahead and start as we're behind.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here and talk to you. I will talk about scalable prediction market use cases. Actually, it's 3 projects. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. The first one is InvestorX, which provide financial advices for Ethereum investors. The second is SurveyX, which is about crowd opinion mining and rewarding. The third is non-reputation X, you can call it NRX. It's a blockchain scalability solution as part of Gnosis Apollo. I will start on the projects one by one. For InvestorX, it's a prediction market use case that aims to provide the best financial advice for investors on Ethereum platform. Users can nominate, vote for the wallet that contains the best combination of Ethereum tokens. The prediction market question will be something like, which wallet had the best return on investment for a specific period? So what combination of tokens give me the best return on investment? We have a POC. It's in investorx.io. It's built with Angular, Truffle 5, and Solidity 0.5. The code is available at GitHub as well. It will be re-implemented with Gnosis Apollo and non-reputation X. We'll come to know what's non-reputation X. The current smart contracts handle receiving Guru's application, names and their wallets, accepting votes from followers, running, starting and closing the election by chairperson. Here is a screenshot from the running POC. Here is the screen that a normal user can see. He can enter his name and nominate his wallet. The wallet came from MetaMask or any Web3 enabled browser. Here is after he chooses to nominate. He will have a friendly message simply. Here is the same page. If the chairperson wants to nominate some other wallet, he can choose a wallet and a Guru name for that wallet. Here is the page for the voting, simply showing the Guru nickname, his wallet, number of votes, and the ability to vote by pressing on the rocket picture. Now come to the SurveyX. It should facilitate crowd opinion mining and incentivization for any survey that's made for any purpose. It's not a prediction market use case, but it's a nice example of how some project could be modeled and built on a prediction market as a prediction market with Apollo, with Gnosis Apollo. The POC is also available on surveyx.io, even with little bugs according to the latest changes. However, it's built with React, Truffle 5, and Solidity 0.5, and it's available on GitHub. We are planning to re-implement it with Gnosis Apollo and non-reputation X. The current POC contain this functionality. The surveyor can create a survey. He can share the link of the survey, and he can end the survey. Participants can participate in a survey. Here is a screenshot from the POC. Here is the landing page. Here is the connectivity check. If the user came from or his wallet was connected to a different network that's maybe the smart contract is not deployed on, he will have a friendly message to change his network, since now it's deployed only in Rinkeby. This is the page that's shown to the participant. They can select the choice. It's now just a POC. It's hard-coded 3 options. He can select the option and cast his vote. Here is the page that's displayed to the surveyor, where he can define the survey and add a survey to the system. The page after adding this survey, a transaction hash for the survey added. Here is the management of the survey. He can end the survey at any time. Now coming to the interesting part, the non-predation X. Blockchain, as we know, till now didn't reach mass adoption. Two of the main reasons for that is the scalability, which is limited number of transactions per second, and the cost, high cost, because the transaction cost is relatively high now. Additionally, Ethereum storage exceeded 1 terabyte, and this is an alert for the community, for us, that we should encourage a wise storage of usage, wise usage of storage. Okay, what's non-reputation X? Actually, it's using an off-chain non-reputation communication that could be claimed on-chain. This off-chain non-reputation communication depends actually on signing the communication between the user and the system owner, as we will see later in a diagram depicting this stuff. So it's also best fit, I think, for prediction markets, and can leverage Gnosis Apollo and expose it to more use cases. For example, the Survey X may be hard to be modeled and implement with Gnosis Apollo without scalability solution. It also will increase the speed in addition to lowering the cost paid by the end user. As a result, the user can vote, participate in surveys, and do any other prediction market participation activities for free. And the user will be only paid for the transaction when they will claim their reward, if there is any. So only people who will receive a reward can claim their reward on-chain. Other stuff can be off-chain. As a result, this caused a less transaction to be saved on Ethereum that exceeded 1 terabyte. Here is a sequence diagram, the sequence diagram for NRX. I hope the font is large enough for you to see. Is it?
Yeah, good, somewhat.
Oh, okay. So the upper part is about the off-chain communication that happen between the user and the UI on the server. The user, first of all, he will submit the data. The UI will request a signature through his wallet. The user, now, here is the non-reputation part. He will sign his data. The signature will be sent at the end to the server where the owner, a key of the admin or whatever, will sign back as a confirmation. This is called non-reputation because using a signature on the signature, actually. And the signed confirmation then will be sent to the user. The user can save a copy of the confirmation. Actually, also the server should save a copy, so we'll have more than one copy. Here is optional that later on the user can request his saved confirmation, and the server will provide his signed confirmation. Once a user, we can say he will log into the system, he will see the signed and confirmed activities. Here is the on-chain part. If the user can have a reward, he deserves a reward, he will send his confirmation, his saved confirmation to claim his reward. On-chain, inside the smart contract, there will be insurance on the validity of the confirmation and the validity of the claim, that he deserves the claim also. And then a reward will be sent back, whether it's Ether or token or whatever. The off-chain signature will be done in compliance with the IP 712 standard that's already implemented in MetaMask, actually, hopefully. Solidity also have the EC recover function that can be used for on-chain verification. As a conclusion, we think that Investor X, Survey X, like almost all other use cases that could be built with Apollo, with Gnosis Apollo, will stay under the hood if they were not provided with a scalability solution. And we believe that non-reputation X is fairly simple yet powerful enough and best fit for prediction market. And it can attract developers and end user to use Gnosis Apollo solutions. Here is the core team. Mohammed Al-Tabbami. I'm a full-stack blockchain developer with solid and extensive commercial experience in web application development. I participated in developing more than 15 portals, web applications, and couple of POCs for Ethereum. Here is my links. I have also Stack Overflow account. You can check also my blockchain articles at Medium, just few articles. The other team member, Muhammad Mazen Hafiz, he is full stack developer. Actually, he is full stack web and blockchain developer. He is fast learner and he has been working, having commercial experience since 2015. Here is his links if you like to check. And we have also Kamar Zaman Hafiz, which is a system analyst. She has a bachelor degree in computer science and information technology engineering, we call it. Her university called it like this. She's specialized in AI. She's skilled in software design, maintenance, development, development process, and architecture. You can check also her links. We have set milestones for each phase.
I think we're a little bit over the time, so we might move to questions maybe here.
Okay, feel free. It's all also on GitHub on the pull request that we created. Yes.
So, are there any questions?
Just one comment. You mentioned you want to build everything on Apollo. We are also working on a new version of our prediction market framework, which allows you to have a little bit more flexibility and also being more gas cost efficient. So you definitely should check that out.
Okay. Sure.
Good. Thank you, guys.
I also want to comment that the last presenter went 5 minutes over, so.
I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, Alan says you have more time.
Okay, so I do also have a question, and
yes.
It's who pays for the users' awards in the NRX? You mentioned that they could, do the whole non-repudiation protocol, but if they have a reward to claim, who pays for it?
Okay, we can have a long discussion on this, but basically what I'm thinking of that non-repudiation X should be part of Gnosis solutions. So you will fund it if you would like the idea. Then other projects will depend on it for free. So in SurveyX, there will be payment and business model. On Investor X will be also a business model. But for non-repudiation X, it should be, I think, smooth, less code, and run for free as part of Gnosis.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. And for non-repudiation, maybe I should mention that what we are planning to is to integrate it with Gnosis solutions. So having a pull request on GitHub for that. I already participated or trying to participate on Gnosis, upgrading the PM contracts to Solidity 0.5 and Web3 version 1. I have my pull request open. I hope to receive also comments on it because it's done on fast. Sure, it will have something to find that can be fine-tuned.
Cool. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So up next is the Level K team, which I think is already on the call, and they want to build Futarchy signaling market using the Gnosis prediction markets. So go ahead and present.
All right. Hi, guys. How's it going? I'm Mike from Level K. I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know when you can see.
Cool. Yeah,
all right.
Can see it.
Sounds good. Okay, so we spent the past few months building a Futarchy application on the Aragon platform, and what our proposal is for GECO is to take this kind of like generic Futarchy application and deploy it as an instance of signaling market for the DX DAO. And I'll explain what that means in this pitch. So first, I'll just give like a quick overview of what Futarchy is, a very brief demo of this application, and then talk about what the signaling market for the DXDAO means in the context of this app. Basically, Futarchy is a way of doing governance using prediction markets. So you pick some success metric like token price in the future, and you set up prediction markets for the public to come in and make a bet on the impact of a decision on that success metric. So let's say it's token price in the future. You set up a prediction market that says, what will the token price be in the future if a decision is made? And then another market for what will the price of the token be in the future if the decision is not made. And you have just open trading on these markets, and you see which one has a more positive impact on your success metric and actually execute that decision. So the app that we've built on Aragon is basically a UI to facilitate that, and a smart contract layer that essentially like sets up the markets. We're using Gnosis PM contracts 1.0. Part of this grant is to upgrade to 2.0. I'll talk about that after. So we have basically like a summary of the decisions here. These are just like, this is all seeded mock data for now. The app's designed in a way that's like pretty generic, meant to be like repurposed for more specific markets like DXDAO governance. So if I want to interact with this, we have a form to interact and actually take a position in this. So in this question's asking like, should we reject XRP from some registry? That's the governance decision that this market is centered around. I choose like a number of tokens to risk. Let's say I want to risk 2 tokens, and I want to take a position. If the decision's made, then I want to say I think the price is going to be more than the market's predicting. But if the decision is not made, well, I think the price will actually end up being less than the market's predicting. So then I can go ahead and execute this prediction and take my position here. This is all running locally. So we have here like a UI to basically facilitate trades on conditional markets, and we can use that to make Futarchy decisions. What we're proposing for the signaling market for DXDAO is we would like to set this up in a way that where it doesn't actually make any decisions for the DXDAO. It's just like an informational market for people to trade on the impact of the governance decisions from DXDAO. So what we would do is like, we'd see when a new proposal comes through via like the Alchemy UI, we will basically make a decision of whether we want to create a new market for that. If it's a high impact decision for DXDAO, we'll create a market in this app, and we can do that through some manual process that we have to kind of design and build out. Then the market appears here, and it's completely permissionless for anyone to come and trade on it. We're proposing that we use Magnolia market cap as a success metric. So that would mean like any decision that we want to add to this market would have to have like a significant impact on Magnolia market cap. So that would be like a very high impact decision. I think, yeah, what else? Oh, so we want to do some like basically rebranding around this, like make the app look like it's part of DXDAO. So make it very clear what users are interacting with here for the signaling market. Right now, it's like just kind of a generic decision markets application. So part of this would be rebranding. Probably one of the bigger parts of the proposal is upgrading to the PM2 contracts, which I know are being worked on right now. Right now, we have this all working with the 1.0 contracts. So yeah, do you guys have questions so far? Maybe I can stop there.
I think it's pretty clear. I was wondering, so basically you're asking for 108 K for 3 months. Can you explain how you arrived at that number, or how many people you're budgeting for how many months?
So I think, oh, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, sorry. 2.5 developers, and that's basically like at cost for us with like, the developer rate that we pay. We also have a design contractor that helped a lot on this app, and we'd love to get him involved, and that incorporates his hourly rate in as well.
Do you also take into account that event, like if you want to enable this delegate voting, this could be interesting to be integrated into the Gnosis safe? Is it also something that you would touch on, or is this outside of the scope?
So when you say integrated into Gnosis safe, like, do you mean?
So basically, you could have, so you could have a safe module that would allow basically to have automated voting based on what the Futarchy DCR, what the Futarchy market is signaling. So kind of an automation of this delegation process.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an awesome idea. We didn't think about it for this proposal specifically. I mean, there's a lot of work just to get this launched, but we have thought a lot about using this as a delegation mechanism for actually executing the vote. So, like, rather than building it to execute the decision itself, we could build some system of where anyone can delegate and like forward their vote through this application. But yeah, it's something. I mean, it's something we've thought about for sure. Not in the context of Gnosis safe, but yeah, that's a great idea.
I think the intent for this proposal is to experiment with Futarchy and have it not impact decisions, but delegating voting would be a cool kind of future effort.
Cool.
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm a big fan of Futarchy and so on. I would say, or kind of as an immediate feedback, I can say, if we would integrate Futarchy or prediction markets with DAOstack and with the GECO DAO, the first step would actually be, in my view, would be to integrate the prediction market framework into holographic consensus, because they have this two-step game or two-step thing, or I mean, it doesn't have to be 2 steps, but it's already part of DAOstack that if you make a proposal, then there will be a kind of prediction market, this pari-mutuel betting thing where you can stake or in a way predict, but it's not really prediction market, it's something else. And we have already the agreement with DAOstack that they want to use Gnosis for that. So if that would already be integrated, then you basically already have a prediction market by default as soon as a proposal comes in. And then you can just have an additional conditional market on the success metric. So I guess that would be the first.
Yeah, I think the root of the idea was, at the time, I think DAOstack was not yet convinced about integrating prediction markets. I think they've changed their mind. So yeah, I agree. Like, this would make probably more sense. So this would mean basically directly integrating the conditional token framework that we have now into the new DAOstack framework. Obviously, this would involve them quite a lot.
Yeah, and if that would be the case, then then it would be, well, basically it would be easier to build this year, because then it's just as, well, I mean, but it's then an additional step. So yeah, we will discuss things, but I could imagine that, or I mean, it's definitely our goal to do that with DAOstack, and maybe we can have, or potentially we can, I don't know yet, but can do a shared grant with DAOstack so we will probably discuss it internally and get back soonish.
Makes sense. I think there's a fair amount. I think there's a fair amount of work building Futarchy on top of the prediction market. So I don't know how much DAOs has done already.
Yeah,
in terms of integration.
yeah. So definitely. I mean, definitely, kind of building Futarchy is more. I mean, like is more work, but having the integration of basically as soon as a proposal comes in, that you automatically do markets on whether the proposal will be accepted. That's kind of half of the, or a third of the way of Futarchy. And since that's on the roadmap anyways, I think that should be the first step. And if that's built, then after that, it's could be the next step to do Futarchy.
Well, thank you guys.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you again.
Have a good day. Yeah. Good to see you.
Bye.
So we're waiting now for the bonded curves team, and they want to give DAOs DAO the ability to launch an index with token bonding curves.
I guess I'll check out now too.
Bye, Alan.
See you, Alan.
All right, see you later.
And Con also left.
No predictions market anymore. It's just governance.
Last one, right?
Yeah, it's the last one.
Like the DAO team, they said they had, it was the Igor who never said something in the call.
He was there.
He was there, but he never said something. I told him he could join at the end, but he still is not replying at the moment. So.
Okay.
But I think the bonded curve team is there now.
Cool.
I'm sorry, Igor, I said you could be ejected.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
So we did already a short introduction. So you want to give DAOs DAO the ability to launch an intake with the token bonding curves. And if you want, you can go ahead and pitch your project.
Sure. I'm waiting 1 second on there's Askir, and then Jordan and Seth are joining us, and they're screen sharing the video. So oh, there they are. Okay. But yeah, we can go ahead and get started with intros. I'm Ori, and yeah, let's just jump into it. Jordan.
Where's the audio?
We can hear.
Yeah, sorry, if you can hear us, we're trying to figure out the audio.
Yeah, we can hear you good.
I can actually just pull up my computer if you want.
We hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, one. I don't think they can. Oh. Okay. Sorry, we're having some difficulties. The laptop we're presenting from doesn't have audio coming out of it, but regardless, let's just go ahead and jump through this. Could you quickly present the like screen sharing? Do you want to? Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, if we could just share presentation, and then we'll go ahead and skip through this. Where is? Yeah. Go. And then go to slides. Let's present.
At the top right, you have present.
Yeah. So slide. Oh, top right.
Okay, beautiful. So yeah, let's go ahead and go through this. Sorry again about the time, but we'll try and make this on time. So hello, my name is Jordan, and I'm from Dory. And today we'd like to present a way to continuously fund the DX DAO. Additionally, this doesn't just apply to the DX DAO, but also any other DAO built on the DAO stack protocol. Really quickly, Dorg is a group that had spun off from the Genesis DAO. We're building DAO tooling, and we're partnering with DAOstack. And so the main question we're looking to answer today is, how can DAOs continuously fund themselves while sharing upsides with contributors and investors? For the DX DAO, it needs sustainable funding to be able to manage itself, requiring administrative and community tasks, manage the DutchX by deploying marketing, funding tasks such as token whitelisting and development of the app itself, and growing itself by developing and adding new dApps to its ecosystem. So if we're just looking for funding, don't token sales and user fees solve this? Token sales and protocol fees have downsides. Fees are continuous but lack investor incentives. Token sales have incentives for investors but lack continuous revenue generation. The continuous organization model is a great hybrid that combines investor incentives and continuous revenue generation. And so we proposed the answer to the question of how can DAOs continuously fund themselves while incentivizing contributors and investors lies within the continuous organization model by way of bonding curves. So how exactly does this work? At the core of the continuous organization model is the bonding curve. The contract acts as your market maker managing all buys and sells. The difference between this and a traditional exchange is that buy and sell prices are fixed based on a total number of tokens in circulation. The price is determined by the curve. Additionally, the buy price is always above the sell price. The difference is called the spread. When users buy into the market, that spread difference goes directly into the organization's treasury. This creates the effect of continuous funding because the treasury will grow as long as there is activity within the market. Lastly, the rest of the funds given as input are kept in a reserve pool. To dig in even further, it is important to note that the market maker can specify what token it supports as buying currency. This leaves the door open for the designer of the market to choose whether they'd like to require payment in Ether or any ERC20 of their choosing. The token minted by the market is an ERC20 token, which allows them to be traded on secondary markets after they're in the possession of the buyer. Additionally, added utility for these tokens can be designed. For example, they could be given governance rights or claims on cash flow. When selling these minted tokens back to the curve, they have the opportunity, or they have the property of instant liquidity because of the market's reserve pool. The tokens sold back to the curve will be burned and the seller will be reimbursed with tokens from the reserve pool according to the current sell price on the curve. As previously stated, the holder of these minted tokens can also choose to sell them on secondary markets if they see any benefits in doing so. An added possibility here is to design additional incentives within the DutchX for these minted tokens. There are other additional features that can be built into the market, such as taxes. A percentage fee for selling back to the market can be added to encourage secondary market trading. Hatching, an initial buying phase where selling is disabled up until a certain amount of tokens are bought. This helps ensure a certain amount of return for early investors. And vesting. Vesting periods can be added to minted tokens, which help fight against pumping and dumping. And governance. Voting power can be given to the token holders, which can help further insulate potentially risky investments. And dividends. Token holders can also be given claims on cash flow of the DAO. These claims can be made on revenues the DAO realizes both in the form of direct customer payments or via shareholder payouts the DAO chooses to distribute. All of what we've talked about thus far has been taken from existing specifications that have emerged. The continuous organization model uses the standard buy and sell mechanism, but adds the claims on cash flow utility to the minted token. The augmented bonding curve model uses a hatching phase, vesting tokens, a burn tax, and governance rights. Its goal is to help fund the commons and early stage unprofitable organizations. And so with all of this, what continuous organization model makes sense for the DX DAO? We think this is for the DX DAO to decide. We have ideas for interesting designs that could enhance the Gnosis ecosystem, but for now, we need to lay the groundwork to enable this type of system design to take place. Our plan is to, one, create a continuous funding scheme that enables DAOs to create and interact with bonding curves, build integrations, or build an integration for Apple Earth, the DAO front end for using the DX DAO. And finally, submit a proposal to the DX DAO to add this scheme to its governance control. So now let's go into more detail, creating the continuous funding scheme. For this scheme, we want to enable the deployment of a curve and support all basic functionality. For the deployment proposal, they'll be able to choose an existing standardized contract or add their own, provide construction parameters to be used with this new contract. And then once they want to interact with an existing curve, they'll be able to buy and sell these Minty tokens back to the curve. Testing the scheme will be done with a simple market maker contract, possibly bank codes. Next, we'll add support for this new scheme in Alchemy Earth. Here you can see on the front page, you'll be able to see a new section for this continuous funding scheme. Lastly, we'd like to propose that this scheme be added to the DX DAO. This will allow all members of the DX DAO to propose the launching of a new bonding curve that is tied to the DX DAO, as well as buy and sell on existing markets. We've broken the roadmap for this project up into two parts. The first part being the smart contract implementation phase, and the second being the application integration phase with Alchemy Earth. For the budget, we're asking for $50K in total, broken up over 4 months. As for the team, we're planning on having the equivalent of 2 full-time developers for 4 months. This team consists of Seth Fergus, Oscar Sotnafast, Ori Shimoni, and myself, Jordan Ellis. In addition to these 4 members, Matan Field has also committed to advising this project. The members of this team have worked on implementing continuous organizations at 2 prior hackathons, placing first at ETH Denver with a project called Packful, and placing second at the Odyssey Hackathon with a project called Augmented Bonding Curves. And lastly, what does this mean for the DX DAO and beyond? Through giving the DX DAO the capability of interacting and deploying these types of continuous funding models, we're opening up the economic design landscape for the DAO. We were inspired by the reasoning behind the creation of the DX DAO as an effort to continuously decentralize every part of the Gnosis stack. With that in mind, we believe that decentralization should also apply to funding sources. Economic self-reliance can only come from decentralizing our funding sources, which leads to a sustainable capital source. In addition to this, we also view this as an interesting model to have an evaluation model for the DX DAO. And then it also creates new economic staking opportunities for the DX DAO. And so that is the end of our slides so far. Let's go ahead and I'll join the call so that we can take questions. 1 second. I'll just turn up my mic. Could you mute yours? Could you mute my mic?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot for the presentation. Can you hear us again, or can we? Are you again in? Yeah. Okay. I would have a high-level question on maybe your understanding of how reputation and token holder would play together. So kind of, well, if the DX DAO would issue a new token, and probably people could buy this token. So yeah, what would be the relationship between token holders and reputation holders on a high level?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. For the simplest case, there would be no connection between reputation holders and token holders. This would actually create a new token that is affiliated with this curve that the DX DAO's treasury is receiving the spread. But there is no explicit governance connection between buying these tokens from the curve and being a reputation holder.
What does the token do? What does it give you?
The token gives you a claim on the curve. So, for example, if the DutchX, if fees were added to the DutchX, and those fees went directly into that curve, but didn't generate tokens, that's called a pay function, not a buy. So if the DutchX fees were paying into the curve, that would move the price up. And so early token holders can then send their token back to the curve to retrieve that higher price that the reserve has increased by. Now we could add governance features into the token. You could say, if you buy this token from the curve and then lock it up, you can like create reputation if the DAO decided to add that kind of governance utility to the bonding curve token.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add that we're not signing up to basically implement the correct continuous funding model for the DX DAO. We're merely giving the support for it to do it itself through proposing that it launches this new market. We think that this problem is a very multi-layered problem with tie-ins possibly to the DX DAO, and then also, you know, possibly governance rights with the already established reputation holders of the DX DAO. So that we see as out of scope for this project. We are strictly just giving DAO-stack DAOs the ability to launch these markets and interact with them.
Cool, yeah, I mean, it was more like a high-level question, so, but yeah.
Just one other like question you had on your slides, like fees would be good for continuous funding, but bad for investors. Sorry, I didn't really understood this part.
Yeah, so we were basically saying that if there are fees coming from the DutchX straight into the DX DAO, if we were thinking of the body of the DX DAO, the beneficiary of those fees not being investors, just being reputation holders, because there is a fixed set of reputation. So yeah, I guess that where the waters get muddied is that the initial set of reputation holders will be investors, but once all that reputation is minted, then there is no more room for investors to come in and actually have a stake in the DX DAO's economic activity.
Okay, how much of the work of continuous organization, like independent of the DX DAO, is already done? How much of the code you think you can reuse, and how much you're writing stuff like front-running guards? Is that stuff you would develop, or that's already out there, or how?
Yeah, so the implementation we're planning on using is the Bane core set of contracts. I was just part of a hackathon at the IC hackathon where we used that to implement the augmented bonding curve model. And so to answer your question of how much of these other features already exist, a lot of them already do exist to some level of completion and you know, trust level with their level of auditing. So yeah, a lot of it does exist, but once again, we're just looking to use a basic contract and be able to support the general case so that these newly designed markets can be deployed and interacted with.
Cool. Just also a background question. Have you already, you mentioned you built already something around DAO-stack? Can you give an example, or?
Yeah, totally. So we've been developing within their platform for the past couple months. Currently, we have a few different projects. We have one project which is a DAO design tool, a DAO creator, where you can kind of customize your controller to your liking and then launch it. But since there's only one front end that exists currently for DAO-stack DAOs, which is Ami, and it only supports the Genesis protocol, we started also developing a UI component library to be able to support these highly customizable DAOs. And so that project is called DAO Components. And then lastly, we're working on a few different registry contracts to be able to support a DAO registry for registering new DAOs within the Genesis ecosystem. And then also identity registry to be used for vetting people's identities.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions, or?
Not from my side.
Well, thanks a lot for the presentation. And I think that's the end for today.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for your time. And again, sorry this was so rushed.
No worries, no, it's all fine.
Cool.
Thank you.
We'll get back to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Should we say bye to the live stream?
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
have
think so,
14
yes.
people
Yeah.
watching.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye everyone for joining. Thanks for joining.